Welcome to this deep dive. And it's a fascinating topic for sure. Africa's journey from aid to self-reliance.
Yeah.
We're looking at a great LinkedIn article by WaihigaKMuturi.
A Kenyan expert, right?
Exactly. And you guys wanted us to unpack it, so let's
Hmm.
dive in.
Let's do it.
It really tackles this complex question of, you know, how development actually works or should work in Africa.
Yeah, and Muturi uses some really compelling stories to illustrate his points, starting with this woman, Ekatipan Selena.
Oh, yeah, Selena,
Yeah,
from Karamoja, Uganda.
right.
Such a story of resilience, huh?
Unbelievable.
I mean, imagine you lose your husband, you're in such dire straits that you end up in caves,
Yeah.
but her neighbors, thankfully they were there.
They rescued her, yeah.
Yeah, and she was able to get involved with this UN Women project,
Right?
and that really taught her some crucial skills, climate smart farming, financial literacy. Those
Yeah.
were her stepping stones.
Exactly. And I mean, it's remarkable, right? She was able to completely turn things around. Now she runs this successful chapati business.
Wow.
She's even in a village savings group, like a community microfinance thing.
And that's what's so powerful about it, right? These programs, combined with someone's own determination, they can really create change.
Yeah.
But then it makes you think, how do we replicate this? How do we scale this up?
Yeah, that's the big question. And Mitsuri doesn't just focus on the heartwarming stories. He also lays out some of well, the harsh realities. Like,
Yeah.
for example, Afrobarometer data shows 1 in 4 Africans live in severe poverty.
Wow.
That's the highest rate since 1999.
And it's increased in places like, you think of Nigeria, Namibia, South Africa, right?
Exactly.
Big economies.
Yeah.
But then, of course, we can't ignore the elephant in the room. COVID, it really threw things off.
Yeah, huge setback. I mean, it pushed 30 million people into extreme poverty,
Yeah.
like wiped out years of progress.
Right.
And the World Bank's warning, Africa's off track to meet the Sustainable Development Goals.
It's the global targets, yeah.
Yeah, and it's even more concerning. The rural poverty rates, they're way higher than urban areas.
So clearly there needs to be this multifaceted approach, right? Like you can't just address the immediate needs, you got to go deeper.
Systemic change. Yeah.
Exactly. And so now we get to this big, kind of controversial issue, the whole role of international aid in Africa's development.
Right.
Muturi, he acknowledges both sides, the good and the bad. He talks about how aid has helped innovation,
Yeah.
like USAID supporting those Kenyan startups, and Robert Kinyori, another expert, he points to that as, fostering growth.
Yeah. But there's valid criticism, too. I mean, Stephen K. Murithi, he's pretty vocal about it, thinks there are big flaws, corruption within USAID.
So it's not black and white.
No, not at all.
It's more nuanced than that. And,
Yeah.
sometimes aid can even create a dependency instead of self-reliance.
That dependency trap.
Exactly. And he brings up this recent USAID freeze. Talk about a curveball, right?
Right.
Projects left hanging, communities scrambling.
It was a real mess. And Ann Huddock, she talked about it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
She pointed out how that whole situation, it revealed the fragility of relying on outside help only.
Can't build your house on sand or...
Exactly. And that's where Muturi really gets into the limitations of those traditional aid models. Like, they don't always consider the local context.
Makes sense.
The Brookings Institution, they found 85% of Africa's poor live in rural areas. But then you see development strategies focusing on cities.
The disconnect is huge.
Yeah. And you have to wonder, are those providing aid, are they really listening? Are they empowering people, or are they keeping them dependent?
It's a tough question.
It is.
Muturi also talks about corruption, A major roadblock.
Oh, yeah.
Afrobarometer, their research, they link rising poverty to corruption, like at the grassroots level.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It erodes trust, makes development harder.
And Joanne Sonnenschein, she had a great point in her LinkedIn post. She was saying, just pouring aid into a broken system without tackling corruption, without building up local capacity, well, it just perpetuates the cycle.
Right. It's like giving someone a fish instead of teaching them to fish.
It makes you think. So if traditional aid isn't the answer, what is? Well, Muturi shifts gears and starts talking about something really exciting, this whole surge of African-led solutions.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting, this wave of innovation and entrepreneurship, coming from within Africa.
And it's not just isolated efforts. There's this growing movement for Pan-African collaboration.
Like the Kilgoris Project, their localization tour.
TKP.
Yeah, they're connecting NGOs, governments, entrepreneurs, all to showcase homegrown solutions.
And it's across all sectors, too. Education, agri-tech, women's empowerment in Kenya, even renewable energy like those mini-grids in Nigeria.
It's about connecting the dots,
Hmm?
building that network of support.
And then there's Let's Create Africa. They're all about business as a force for good.
They've trained over 1 million, 200,000 MSMEs.
Whoa.
Micro, small, and medium enterprises.
The backbone of the economy, right?
Exactly.
And their approach, it's all about empowering people, giving them the tools and resources to build their own livelihoods.
It's that whole teach a person to fish thing.
Yeah. And it's so similar to Selena's story, isn't it? Power of local knowledge and that entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely. It's not about handouts. It's about providing the tools, the support systems for people to succeed.
And what's really impressive, Let's Create Africa, they work with everyone, governments, corporations, local communities.
Is that multi-stakeholder approach?
So Muturi, he lays out this three-pronged path forward, like a roadmap from aid to agency.
Okay, I'm listening.
First up, local fundraising. He believes Africa has all these untapped resources. Like, think about diaspora investments, right?
Yeah.
Money from Africans abroad, or corporate social responsibility initiatives.
Makes sense. Shifting away from relying on outside donors.
And remember, Selena's Village Savings Group, proof that even small amounts of capital can have a huge impact.
Yeah, the power of community-based solutions.
Yes.
Yeah, it's about tapping into that local potential.
Exactly. And John Hope Bryant, with Operation Hope, he's a great example. Promoting financial literacy, empowering communities to build wealth.
From the ground up.
It's inspiring, right?
Yeah.
But Muturi doesn't stop there. He says policy changes are crucial too.
Oh yeah, got to change the system.
Governments, they need to prioritize rural development. That's where the majority of people live, where poverty hits the hardest.
Makes sense.
So invest in infrastructure, education, healthcare in those areas. Tackle their root causes.
For sure. And can't forget about corruption, right?
Huge problem.
Got to deal with that.
Muturi actually highlights Liberia and Morocco.
Oh, interesting.
They've made some progress.
How so?
By focusing on decentralization, giving more power to local governments, and investing in agriculture, which, let's face it, is the backbone of so many African economies.
It's about creating that enabling environment, right? So communities can thrive.
Exactly. It's not just throwing money at the problem, it's being strategic. And finally, Muturi gets to this point about Pan-African collaboration and agency.
This is key.
Africa taking charge of its own development, moving away from that old aid dependency.
Like Professor Robert Mantz says, Africa needs to architect its own rescue.
Powerful stuff. Muturi's vision, it's about African nations working together, sharing knowledge, supporting each other's growth.
Breaking down those silos.
Right, and scaling up those social entrepreneurship models. Like, imagine if what Selena's doing, what Let's Create Africa is doing, if that was the norm.
That would be amazing.
So it's about dismantling those old systems of dependency, replacing them with collaboration, innovation, self-reliance.
I like it.
And, after reading Muturi's article, I'm honestly feeling really optimistic about Africa's future.
Me too. Me too. What I find really effective is how he connects those individual stories, like Selena's, to the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's not just about celebrating individual success.
It's about understanding how that can inspire change on a larger scale.
And he ends with this image that stuck with me. Selena's home, a home she built with the profits from her chapati business.
Wow, yeah.
A tangible symbol, right? What's possible when you invest in people, when you create opportunities for them to lift themselves out of poverty?
No handouts, just empowerment.
And that brings us to Muturi's challenge to all of us. He asks, how can we, in our own ways, help amplify these African-led solutions? How can we contribute to a more equitable and sustainable future for the continent?
It's a call to action.
For sure, it really gets you thinking, what can we actually do?
Yeah, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, but I think Muturi, he offers some good starting points.
Okay.
Like supporting those organizations on the ground.
Makes sense.
The ones doing the work, like Let's Create Africa,
The ones empowering those entrepreneurs, yeah.
Exactly. So donating, volunteering, even just spreading the word about what they do.
Yeah.
That all makes a difference.
And we can also push for policy changes, right?
Absolutely. Contact our representatives, support organizations working on those issues, even just educate ourselves, educate others.
Right, like use our voices.
And sometimes just sharing those stories like Selena's.
Yeah, the power of storytelling.
It can really challenge those old perceptions of Africa.
Show the resilience, the innovation.
And inspire people to get involved.
Selena's journey, it's such a powerful example. her determination, the right support, and bam, she builds her own home
Brick by brick.
with her chapati business.
It's incredible.
So wrapping up this deep dive, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling, I guess, a sense of responsibility,
Yeah,
but also excitement.
me too.
Because it's clear that the narrative around African development, it's changing.
It is.
And we can be a part of that.
We can all contribute to that positive change.
It's about moving beyond those old ideas of aid, embracing a future where Africa is leading the way.
Using its own ingenuity, its own resources.
And if Selena can build her own home, her own future, with a chapati business...
Imagine what a whole continent can do.
It's inspiring, right?
It is.
So thanks for joining us on this exploration of Africa's journey from aid to agency. Hope it gave you some things to think about.
Some food for thought, for sure.
And who knows, maybe even inspired you to take action.
That's the goal.